Happy holidays and welcome back to another episode of Amber's Apron. Today I'm going to be sharing with you a recipe that's been passed down over several generations. It's actually my great-grandma's recipe. She used to make it for Thanksgiving and she passed it down to my mother. My mother makes it now and it's just such a good recipe. So I hope you'll enjoy this episode. I will be sharing a lot about my family. And I mean, after all, isn't that what the holidays are about? But I hope y'all will make this and I hope you'll try it and share it with your family because it's a really good recipe. First, I want to start off by saying this recipe that my little old Granny Webb used to make, she used canned biscuits. And I don't know what kind of world we're living in now where all the canned biscuits are picked over at the grocery store. So that's how I'm starting out because I have none. I went to one grocery store and I was so frustrated because it was crazy and I just don't know why people lose their minds over groceries. But that's a different episode. And so I gave up. I couldn't find any canned biscuits, at least like not as many as I needed. They were like one or two little tubes of whatever. And so I thought, you know what my little old Granny Webb would have done? If she couldn't have found these canned biscuits, she would have made her own biscuit dough. So that's what I'm doing. And y'all can go back to the very first episode I ever did to get the recipe for the biscuit dough. The only thing I'm not doing here is I'm not adding in the baking powder because I don't really care if this rises or not. It's, dough for my dumplings. Oh, I didn't tell y'all what we're making. We're making chicken and dumplings. But it's different. It's not going to be like the little old church lady chicken and dumplings. It's really rich and savory and it's so good. So I was lucky enough. I was the first grandchild on both sides of the family. So my mom's side and my dad's side. I was lucky enough to have grown up with both sets of like all of my grandparents. So I had my mom's mom and dad, my dad's mom and dad, and then I had my papa on my mom's side. His mama was still alive. My grandma on my mom's side, her mom and dad were still alive. And then on my dad's side of the family, my grandma's mom was still alive. And on my dad's side of the family, my grandpa's mom and dad, which would have been my great-grandma and great-grandpa. And that's old Granny Webb and old Papa Webb. And actually we called Papa, we called him Pap. And so I got to grow up with all of my grandparents being alive. And I used to go over to old Granny Webb and see, let me just tell you, I was a cool kid. And like I said, I was the first grandchild and everybody was fairly young. Like my mom was only 19 when she had me. My dad was 20 or 21. I can't remember. They hadn't been married, over a year and they had me. And so I was the first one. My grandparents on my dad's side, they were still young. My grandparents still worked. It's not even like they were retirement age. My grandparents on my mom's side, they were still young. My papa still worked. My granny always stayed home because they had kids. And so I got to grow up with all of that. And they were all young enough. It's like I had to have a way in my little kid brain to separate who people were talking about. So if they were saying Granny Webb, I didn't know if they meant my Granny Webb or my great-grandma Webb. And so I gave them the names of, there was Granny and Papa, and then there was old Granny and Papa. So I knew the difference. And looking back, it's so cool I had that because so many kids nowadays don't. A lot of people are getting married later in life and having kids older, and those great-grandparents just aren't around. Or if they are, they're not there for a long time. And I mean, I used to ride the school bus, or I would get to my great-granny or my old Granny Webb's house and stay with her and Pap after school. And I remember doing that. I remember playing with my magic markers and, paper on her little kitchen table. And those were memories that I didn't realize I was making them at the time, You kind of take for granted people are there, and then when they're not, if you didn't make the memories, you don't have anything left. And so this is her little recipe, and y'all, that side of the family they're so fun. I talked about my daddy, how I'm a lot like him, and I get my wit from him, and I'm very quick-witted like my daddy. But y'all, that goes back to my Papa Webb, and he just passed away this year, and it was bittersweet. Because anytime a follower of Jesus dies, it's a good time. Where they are, and it was bittersweet, because he wasn't there anymore, and yet there were all of these memories. And even at the funeral home, our family was kind of standing around laughing, talking about, little jokes they had played on him, and it was very bittersweet. But that side of the family. So my old Granny Webb, she had 4 kids. She had my papa, who was Marvin. She had my great uncle, which was Dennis. She had my great aunt, which was Dorothy, and they called her Dottie. And she had Bess. And y'all, if you just knew the family, Bess and Dennis and my papa were wild. It was so much fun to be around them. And I remember being a little girl, and because Bess and her husband Bill, they lived up north. And anytime they came to visit, because we would typically go to my grandparents' house, and they lived beside my great-grandparents' house every Sunday. And I would always be like, are Bess and Bill in? Because if you could get my papa and Bess in the same room, chaos would ensue. And it was so fun, and the stories and the way they talked to each other. And if you could get Dennis in the mix, it was comical. It was so funny. And y'all, they picked at each other. They talked awful to each other. My dad and his sister and his brother, they all picked on one another, and it was just so much fun to be around them. And the jokes they played, y'all, it was awful. Like, for instance, this is what we're talking about at the funeral home, at my papa's funeral. He was a diehard Democrat, and they would buy him things that was Trump just to make him mad, like just to irritate him. And y'all, my daddy put a Trump bumper sticker on his truck that he didn't know for a while. He drove around with it for a while on there. And then when he found it, he blamed my Uncle Mike. And y'all, they never told him any different. So he thought Mike did that the whole time he was alive. And they just did things like that. My Aunt Lori got him a mug. It was a Donald Trump mug talking about being the best dad ever. Believe me, the whole spiel. It was just, and so they would play jokes like that on him for sure, but then they played jokes amongst themselves, and it was just so much fun. But Dennis and Bess and my papa, they were a handful. I mean, I cannot imagine being my little old Granny Webb handling them kids, because I talk about my kids being wild and rowdy, but y'all, oh, you just don't know. And I cannot tell you the stories because they're pretty bad. I might be taken off YouTube. They're not that bad. They're not. They're just, they used very colorful language and made accusations. And it was just so much fun. And family reunions, y'all, we would drive. We would drive a ways just to get to a family reunion because, man, it was just so fun having that gang together. But my little Granny Webb, she was precious. She was, gosh, I may try to throw in a little picture of her and my old Granny, or my old Papa Webb, Pap. I have pictures of them. But she was just so precious. She was what you would think a little old lady would be. She was just petite and slim, and she's just precious. She always had like a joyful, welcoming behavior about her, or just the way she carried herself. She was just so sweet, and she wore little aprons, or I'm sorry, I should call them house coats. I think that's what they called them. But it was like a little apron, but it didn't have the little straps. She would safety pin it on her little dresses because she wore dresses, and she was precious. And anytime we went over there, you know, I'm a kid and I would like to sneak around in my old Papa Webb's. He had this little barn that it was kind of like a workshop because he worked with different things. He would make knives and stuff like that. And I would always sneak off in his barn and just try to see everything. And of course, my whole family, they raised cows and, you know, they had gardens and ran a farm, and it was just so fun to be out. You know, you could go outside to the pond and I'd ride my bike, and I almost got hit by a car leaving Bess's house one time. And, you know, it was like an adventure, you know, anytime you were there at their house or even just around them, especially, you know, when families got together, like Christmas time or Thanksgiving. And it was just, you know, I have really good memories of all of them. And actually, they were all just they were just fun. And you never knew what was going to happen. And I actually, when my papa passed away, I posted on Facebook that my papa raised cows and tomatoes and a whole lot of hell. And that's true. It was like the perfect description for my papa. But Lord, that whole family, they're just so fun. And so that was one of the things at my papa's, you know, funeral. My cousin Kyle and I were talking about. They're all together now. And can't you imagine? Oh, it's just, you know, it's bittersweet, especially when people pass on. So make memories while you can. And for me, a lot of memories live in recipes, because that's something you can always pass down and you can remember. Like, I remember her making these. I remember, gosh, you know, and it's funny because my young Granny Webb, I always remember her pinto beans, because y'all, they will rock your world. They're so good. And it's not even pinto beans. She buys those cranberry beans. And the way she makes them, it's just so good. Now, y'all, I did one little thing to these biscuits. Since I'm having to roll out my own dough, and because it's Thanksgiving and I wanted these to be holiday dumplings, I added a little bit of that holiday seasoning from Epicure that I talked about in one of my episodes. And y'all, I'm sorry. I know it sounds like I'm all of a sudden sick, and I wasn't. It must be this candle. I bet it's that candle I'm burning. But I added a little bit of that seasoning, and it's rosemary and sage and a little bit of lemon and pepper. And, you know, I thought it would just give it like this little savoriness. So all I'm going to do is roll these out. Now, I got creative since I don't have canned biscuits, because y'all done bought them all. I don't even know what happened. And y'all, I get that there's like shortages because things are stuck in the ocean and people aren't at the ports to unload everything. I get that. But y'all, where the heck does canned biscuits come from? Are we getting those from Asia? Because how do they last that long on a boat? Y'all can't tell me that's what's happening. I'm telling you, I was fit to be tied. I couldn't find turkey stock, and I couldn't find canned biscuits the other day, of all things. But they had plenty of marshmallow cream, so I got marshmallow cream to make my fudge, which I may do an episode on that, because y'all, I've been seeing these recipes for peanut butter fudge, and you mix like vanilla frosting and something else, and nay, I don't know what it tastes like. It may taste like fudge, but y'all, that is not fudge. Come at me. That is not fudge. Okay, so I've rolled these kind of thin, because if you think about it, canned biscuits, they're not ginormous. They're kind of flat because they're all stuck in that tube. And y'all, I'm going to use my little apple wedger, because that's what you would do. You would take your canned biscuit, look at that one, and you would break it up. So if you can find canned biscuits, this is what you're going for your dumplings. If not, make biscuit dough. And y'all, I'm not making these pretty, because these are not going on a pan and we're not going to eat them. If they have little chunks taken out, that's probably even better. Voila! Check out my dumplings. As you can see, surely y'all can see this. I've got a whole countertop full. This is about how big you want your dumpling to be. So if you are lucky enough to find canned biscuits, take them out, separate them, kind of flatten them down, and just tear them. You know, these all look uniform because I used my apple wedger. But some of these, like, that was the in-between. I just tore it up. So they don't have to be pretty because they're going to cook and they're not going to be pretty, when they're in the pot. So next we're going to get started on our chicken. Part of the dumplings. All right, y'all. Spoiler alert. There ain't no chicken in my chicken and dumplings because I'm using cream of chicken soup. So like I said, this is a really old family recipe and it's genius, quite frankly. Because this isn't like the chicken and dumplings you've had at, the little Baptist church down the street. This is hearty, stick to your ribs, like make you feel warm from the inside out chicken and dumplings. So I have 5 cans of various styles of cream of chicken soup, and it's because I got what I got and I didn't pitch a fit. So actually these 2 cans I got unsalted on purpose. Everything else was because I couldn't find regular because this is pretty salty. And I've used salted butter in my biscuit dough, and I'm also going to put butter in this, my dumplings. So I want to cut out just a little bit of salt so it's not so aggressive. And one thing, I left the lid on this to show y'all. When you take these little, pull tabs off, it leaves a ring around the inside of the can. If you use a can opener, you get a smooth opening, so you can scrape all of that thick canned soup out. And that's how I prefer, because when I try to stick my little scraper in there, I can't get it all, and I feel like they gypped me. I feel like Campbell's is out to get me because I can't get every last little ooey gooey bit of the cream of chicken and, cream of mushroom, whatever you're working with. See, it's got that little ring around it that stays inside, and you can't get all the yum out. And as you can see, I scrape it till it's dry because I want all of that. And I found this cream of chicken with herbs. We're going to give it a whirl. I usually don't use it. So, and y'all, like I said, my great granny gave this recipe to my mama before she passed away. And getting the recipe from my mother was like trying to pull teeth. And actually, I'll show you. I'll insert a little screenshot of what the recipe looks like my mother sent. Because she says, this, and this. I'll tell you more tonight. Who does that? It's like she's the CIA and she's sharing secrets with the enemy. I'm like, please. So honestly, if my family sees this and says, this is not her recipe, y'all know my mama's number. You get her, because she hoodooed me if this isn't really her recipe. I think it is, though. I don't think my mom is that creative. Also, I've started my own little family tradition with my mother, because she likes to call shotgun on everything, every holiday. So when they started telling us about the turkey shortages coming up, I bought a turkey, and so did my aunt. And I texted, we have this little family chat, this little group text thing. And I call it purgatory because I can't get out of it. Y'all know. And so I sent a text in that little group, and I was like, hey, I just got a turkey. And she sent back, I bought the turkey and the ham, and I'm cooking them. Wow. All right, I will make something different. So she likes to call the shots on our holidays, which is fine. Everybody's used to it by now. But I've started my own little tradition where I make something she didn't want. And if you're not doing that with your mother, I encourage it, because it helps rein her in, Bring her back to earth. And she gets mad, not super, it's not a family thing, but she gets irritated where she's like, I want you to bring sweet potato casserole. That's all you need to bring. And so I will bring sweet potato casserole and other things. And then she complains that we have too much food. And even though people like it, people will be like, oh, Amber, that's so good. Well, we didn't eat it. And I don't even care. Y'all tell her, I don't even care because it's the truth. Let's bring let's bring Thanksgiving down a notch for everybody, shall we? So last year I made, and if it's fancy, she really she doesn't like it. It's like being a show off. And so last year I made brie. I bought a brie cheese, like a wheel of brie, and I layered it with fresh cranberries and a little bit of cranberry sauce, not the canned kind, like the homemade kind, and wrapped it in phyllo dough and baked it, and then put like praline pecans on the top. And actually we were late. We were late because it was still cooking. And so that was like already enough to make her mad. And it was really good. It was tasty. It was something different that we're not used to. And it went over like cracked glass. So this year I found these little goat cheese balls I'm going to make. I think they're called cranberry goat cheese truffles. I'm going to make that. And of course, sweet potato casserole, because that's what she told me to make, and only make that. And I'm looking for another recipe to really just take it over the edge. Okay, so I stood here and emptied out every one of those. That's what my dumplings is going to look like. What I'm going to add to this, I'm going to add a stick of unsalted butter, because I can always add salt if it's not tasty. I cannot take it away if it makes your mouth pucker. So I'm going to add 1 stick of unsalted butter. I'm going to get these going. And then I'm keeping my cans out because they still have a little bit of stuff, even though I scrape them dry. If I need to add water to thin this down, I can use these cans and get even more of that flavor. And it's not just plain water. And I like to season every step. So when I come back, we will be over there at the stove. We'll be bowling and we'll be ready to put these dumplings in. All right, y'all, I'm back over here at the stove. I've got my stick of butter in here along with all of my cream of chicken soup, and I'm going to add 1 can of evaporated milk, a big can, and I couldn't find my little, I don't know what they call it. I guess it's like a can opener, but it's got like the little sharp point, and you stick it on there and you poke down on both sides. Here's the problem. I think it belongs in the silverware drawer because it is silver. It's got a handle and it's easier to find there. My husband feels like it belongs in the utensil drawer, which is like Narnia for everything that we use other than forks, spoons, and knives. And when I say Narnia, I mean like you really get lost in there. And I couldn't find it, so I used my can opener and I just took that top clean off. You know why? Because there's more than one way to skin a cat. Okay, so this is still a little thick. I went ahead and put a little bit more water, and I'm just gradually going to add it. I'm not going to add the whole can at one time. And it's almost like one of those you'll know it when you know it type of things. Like I can't really tell you how you need this to be. I can just show you what it's like. You feel it and you see it. So mine's right on the verge of boiling. We don't want it to boil. And all I'm going to do, I'm going to drop these in. I'm not going to put them on top of one another, and I'm just kind of gently throwing them in. This broth, I guess. I was going to say broth. It's thick. It's, it's going to cook it. Same way with fondue. Have y'all done fondue? That's what we're doing for New Year's Eve this year, and I can't wait. I'm so excited. I'm going to do fondue to 22, and we're going to have all kinds of broth and butter and cheeses and chocolates and caramels, and we're just going to eat. That thrills my soul. So this is kind of like the idea of fondue. You've got a hot liquid, and you're going to put your, which normally you do meat, but you're going to put the dumplings in there, and it's just going to gently cook them. You don't want to boil them because, like I said, these will pretty well disintegrate. And y'all can see, I kind of have these stuck on top of each other just because I was getting desperate for room and I didn't want to cut any more parchment paper. And y'all, I'm just laying them in here. I'll bring the camera over in a jiff and show you how I'm doing it. All right, I'm going to show you what I'm looking at. And you can see how they're really coated, and you can tell that they've gotten a little bigger. Like, I don't want to say it rose, because, I mean, dough rises, obviously, but it's swelled up a little bit. That's how we want our dumplings. Y'all, let me share with you a memory that got me in trouble recently, and I'll tell you the story. When I was 18, my first full-time job, I worked at a credit union. And I worked at their corporate office, so I like, you know, when you're 18, you don't even know how to be an adult, but I was trying hard. And I worked with a woman. Y'all, she was precious. And I have tried to find her because it's been years, it's been 20 years since I've worked there. And I've tried to find her on Facebook, Instagram, and I can't find her, and it's so sad. But I worked with her, and she was amazing. She is the kind of person that is a light, and you're drawn to her, and she makes good out of any situation, and she's just so, her name should have been Joy. You know, she was just a character, and she left an impact on my life more than anybody else has, and I really, it's always a surprise when I think of that, because she and I were close, but we didn't stay in touch once I left. But she was a lot older than, you know, I'm 18, she's, you know, in her 40s. So that would have been weird. But she was phenomenal. She had a big family. She had a lot of kids. And she lived right in the middle of Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And she came in with these funny stories all the time. Well, because we were a credit union, we were closed for the day of Thanksgiving, but not the day after. So we all had to come back to work that Friday. And we knew she was making dinner for her family for Thanksgiving. She had, you know, her mom and her siblings and cousins, and she just, you know, she was cooking a big meal. And so she came back to work that Friday and told us this story. And y'all, every Thanksgiving, I think about this story. She had been cooking her food, you know, the night before, you know, like Jell-O salad and cranberry salad and everything that you could refrigerate. And so she ran out of room in her refrigerator, and she thought, it's cold enough outside, I'm going to put that turkey out there and it'll stay cold just like it was in the refrigerator, and I'll get up the next morning and I'll cook it. Y'all, somebody stole her turkey. And I was telling my husband about this the other night, because I seriously think about this every year. And he's like, couldn't an animal have just come up and got it? And I was like, she lived in the city. Somebody stole her turkey. And so she came in that Friday and was laughing about it, which it was fine. You know, she made the best out of that situation, and they had, you know, gobs more food. But every year I think about her and that turkey. And just the other day I was thinking about her and that turkey, and I was not paying attention. I was driving, and y'all, I pulled into daycare. Just bebopping. I had my music on. Cash was in the back seat playing on his phone. And daycare, the whole front of daycare is a bunch of windows. And because of the way the sun hits, they put this dark, almost black tint over these windows. So when you pull up, you see your reflection. So I pull up in my car and I see myself, and Lord, I see police cars. There's a police car that flies in behind me, and he's got his lights on and his siren. There's two of the, you know, police officers up front, and they like fly in and block me in, and I'm like, what in the world? And there were some of the daycare teachers outside hanging up Christmas decorations, and one of them looked at me and she went, "What did you do?" And I was like, "Are they here for me? Like, I haven't done nothing." And so needless to say, everybody who worked at the daycare like scattered, and they left me to fend for myself. And y'all, I ran a stop sign, and I argued with the guy, which I shouldn't have, but I never run stop signs. If anything, I speed. I know that. Catch me any day and tell me I was doing 90, and I'm like, yeah, probably. But I always stop at stop signs. But if I'm being honest, my attention was on Margot and that turkey, and I don't even remember driving back from preschool. And Must have run a stop sign. But apparently that's the first time a parent ever pulled into daycare with the cops hot on their trail. It's like I'd robbed a bank. And it was so funny because I'm living in my own little world and I'm like, what in the world? So if you know Margot in Oak Ridge, you tell her I'm looking for her. Me and her need to settle some things. No, I'm just teasing. But she, gosh, I think of Margot all the time. And if I could tell you all the stories of Margot. See, that's the thing. It goes back to you don't realize you're making memories until you're out of that stage. And Lord, I miss her. I miss her so much. She has grandkids now. I wonder if her turkey I bet she's never put another turkey outside to thaw. So y'all, if you live in the city limits, don't do it. And y'all, if you live in the county, over the county line and, you're not surrounded by a lot of people, still don't do it. There's animals that'll come get it. We got coyotes up here on the mountain. They'll be eating good in the neighborhood. Oh, and whatever you do, don't run stop signs. I've taught y'all a lot today. I just wanted to teach you about dumplings. I didn't want to teach you about the law. The proper way to thaw turkeys. Now, as you cook these and as the ones that you first put in start to cook and, kind of bake, they become, firmer and a real dumpling. The newer ones that you add, you're kind of running out of acreage. So let me show you what I'm doing. Okay, so see how I've done this? I've got a pot full, and I don't want to stir this because these newer ones, they haven't had time to firm up. So I'm just going to kind of pat them down in here. The steam will help cook them, but I want them to kind of be submerged. I want them to be covered by that thickness. And then I'm just going to leave this alone, let it do its thing. Keep patting it down, but as you can see, I'm running out of space. I have dumplings all in this pot. Don't it look good? I think they're done. There's only one real way to check and see if your dumplings are done, and you gotta taste them. So I've let them boil. I'm just gonna say boil because y'all heard them popping and cracking and spewing, and I never could get it to quit. So there are a few that are just little, which we knew that whenever I cut them. Do y'all see how thick that is? Look at that. Okay. Now you got to really taste them. Look at that. And just conveniently, I got a big spoon. Y'all see how hot that is? Holy cow! It's like getting a facial. Which, y'all gotta taste it because I haven't added any salt or pepper or, any seasonings really. So if it needs salt, if it needs pepper, I need to taste it so I know. So you gotta taste your food, right? Let's give it a whirl. These are good. They have that flavor of, Thanksgiving. They remind me of old Granny Webb. Still hot though. Woo! I need it to cool down so I can really taste it. I can't lick the spoon right now. Woo! Yeah. Mom gave me the recipe. Honestly, I think I want to add just a teensy bit of salt. I mean, you don't have to use it, but I'm going to add just a little bit. And some black pepper. And then I'll just have to taste it again, won't I? I think just a little bit. A little bit of salt. And I like to use this. Restaurant ground black pepper. You know why? Because it's like perfect. If I grind the pepper, they're uneven. Like they're, you know, some are fat chunks, some are little chunks. The fat chunks kind of, you can crunch on them when you're eating it. I don't like that. So I like this. It's all perfect. Everything's like the perfect little grain of pepper. And then I'm just gonna, see, now you can stir it to death. Y'all know I got this gas stove and it cooks hot. Did I add all those dumplings? You darn right I did. Should I have? I probably could have cut a few out, but I didn't want them to go to waste. And I mean, what's wrong with a lot of dumplings? I mean, it's thick, y'all. Look at that. Some of them cooked to pieces, but I still have some big chunks. Now, I need to taste it, right? Just a little bit. This is hot as blazes. And do I regret using that cream of chicken with herbs? Not at all. It didn't, wasn't overpowering. I liked it. I would use that again. I would use the blend of cream of chicken soups that I bought this time. I think I liked the unsalted because you can definitely get these too salty. It's hot as blazes. Yeah, that extra salt makes it taste like old Granny Webb's. I like it. I'm so glad. I was worried. I thought Mom might have snookered me, you know? Like, I'm not going to tell her this part of the recipe. You know, moms. You know. First of all, subscribe to my channel because you never do know when a video is going to pop up. And I'm pretty sure the next one's going to be peanut butter fudge because y'all need to know how to make that and quit using this icing stuff. It's crazy. And be sure and go to Facebook and find me there. Like my page. It's called Amber's Apron. I post helpful tips from time to time. I post pictures of my food. I post recipes. Things that I can't really throw out on YouTube. So follow me on Facebook. Subscribe to this channel. And if you try any of these recipes, you have to let me know. I need to know how good they are. You can message me, you can comment on YouTube, whatever. Let me know you've tried it. That makes me feel good. And I mean, these recipes they're my recipes. If I pull in daycare with cops on my tail and I can follow these recipes, you can too. So, make it, taste it, tell me what you think. And as always, have a very happy day. Where would you be at?